This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth with breaking news. The war drums are beating louder and faster surrounding Iran as protests have now entered their 5th straight day of action with no signs of slowing down. And before I break down the specifics here, I want to let you know that the reason why I use the word imminent in the title is because I've seen this before as a method to topple nations in the Middle East, and they're following their modus operandi to a T. Protests began on Thursday night in response to the failing economy and the rising fuel and food prices, a growing trend in nations all over the world. Donald Trump tweeted, "Many reports of peaceful protests by Iranian citizens fed up with regime's corruption and its squandering of the nation's wealth to fund terrorism abroad. Iranian government should respect their people's rights, including right to express themselves. The world is watching." And indeed, the whole world is watching as it continues to get worse by the day. 12 people were recently killed in Iran, and security forces are accused of opening fire. 12 people have been killed during the 4th night of spontaneous protests in Iran, according to state TV. The deaths follow reports that Iran's Revolutionary Guard vowed to crush dissent and take tough action if the unrest continued, in what began as a protest against economic policies and seemed to immediately morph into a call for regime change. Isn't it funny how a protest can just all of a sudden take a sudden turn like that? I wonder if it's possible that there were provocateurs there stirring things up in order to steer the direction of the protest. Well, this video appears to show just that, as you can see what has become common here in the West, a group of provocateurs dressed in black with their faces masked, smashing and vandalizing random public property. And now we've got this. Iran cuts off internet amid mass protests calls for armed uprising, which prompted Trump to tweet, "Iran, the #1 state of sponsored terror with numerous violations of human rights occurring on an hourly basis, has now closed down the internet so that peaceful demonstrators cannot communicate. Not good." Talk about manipulation. Iran has been in the crosshairs of the United States for decades, and they've always known that the only way to get people behind an invasion is to do it under the guise of a humanitarian mission. You may have missed this from the Wall Street Journal, which I'm sure is just purely coincidence. CIA creates new mission center to turn up the heat on Iran. The Central Intelligence Agency has established an organization focused exclusively on gathering and analyzing intelligence about Iran, reflecting the Trump administration's decision to make that country a higher priority target for American spies, according to US officials. And of course, who could forget General Wesley Clark's warnings that the Pentagon issued a memo stating that they were going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq, then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and eventually finishing off with Iran. A link to that video will be located in the description below. So needless to say, it's not looking good, folks. And now we have reports like this coming in. US intelligence reportedly gives Israel green light to assassinate Iran's top general. According to reports circulating widely in Israeli media today, the United States has quietly given Israel the green light to assassinate Iran's top military officer. It's quite the way to start out the new year, isn't it? They did it with Iraq, they did it with Libya, and they're doing it with Syria and Iran. It's called order out of chaos, folks. We need to recognize it and call it for what it is. And as they continue to beat the war drums faster and louder, we're going to continue to stay on top of this information so that you can see all sides of the geopolitical picture that is currently unfolding all around us. We'll have more on this story as it continues to develop, so be sure to give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. And stay tuned, folks. We've got more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth.